school. I found it rough and violent, and many of us felt afraid and uninspired. There were some good teachers, and they tried hard, but the school was absorbing too many of society's problems. Poverty, neglect, a collapse in social trust, a decline in a sense of community, and the school just couldn't cope. So 30 years later, I'm doing a PhD in education to try and find out why we send so many of our children somewhere they don't like. Because it's not just my school. When I became a teacher myself, I worked in all kinds of schools in all kinds of countries. And I found that unhappiness in the classroom doesn't discriminate. Rich or poor, north or south, so many of our kids are unhappy in school. But education should be a promise that one generation makes to the next. We will give you what you need to survive and thrive. And right now we're breaking that promise. And that broken promise is what I'd like to talk to you about today. So to answer that question, I went back to when formal schooling first began in this country. I spent months reading parliamentary debates and policy documents, and what I found blew my mind. So picture Britain in 1800. The Industrial Revolution is transforming everything. There's a rapidly expanding urban working class, and they're organising and learning to read, and they're asking for the vote. And the ruling class are afraid. They're afraid of what a truly educated working class might do. Here's Davis Giddy, an MP speaking in the House of Commons in 1807 about education for the working class. It would teach them to despise their lot in life. Instead of making them good servants in agriculture and other laborious employments to which their rank in society had destined them, instead of teaching them the virtue of subordination, it would render them insolent to their superiors. So what did they do? They built an education to keep everyone in their place. James K. Shuttleworth, the man who would design the first state schooling system in this country, said this about the purpose of schools for the working class. A more intimate and cordial association would be cultivated between the capitalist and those in his employ. The poor would be instructed in habits of forethought and economy. So let me translate. Cordial relationship. That means workers who are compliant, grateful, and loyal. Forethought and economy. That means working class people who are penny pinching, they have self-restraint, and they keep to their station in life. Because this wasn't just the working class. While working class schools taught self-discipline, basic literacy, and obedience, middle class schools were teaching the people that would go on to be managers and administrators and run the machinery of empire and industry. And so-called elite schools were teaching children to be future leaders, and they were teaching them governance and the classics and rhetoric. And the networks formed in these elite schools ensured that power stayed where it was. So 3 tiers, 3 curricula, 1 purpose, to make sure that the social structure didn't change. Because no one at any level was taught to question whether that social structure itself was right. And this wasn't just Britain. In the United States of America, Frederick T. Gates, who was John D. Rockefeller's education advisor, funding the expansion of American public schooling, wrote this in an official paper in 1913. In our dream, we have limitless resources, and the people yield themselves with perfect docility to our moulding hand. We work our own goodwill upon a grateful and responsive rural folk. We shall not try to make these people or any of their children into philosophers or men of learning or men of science. We shall not search for great artists, painters, musicians, nor lawyers, doctors, preachers, politicians, statesmen. The task we set before ourselves is very simple, as well as a very beautiful one. To train these people as we find them in a perfectly ideal life, just where they are. And this isn't just history. Earlier this year, the US signed an executive order forcing all schools in America to teach what they call patriotic education. And this includes just a single view of American history, which was, in the words of the order, to be unifying, inspiring, and ennobling. 2 countries, 3 centuries, and 1 pattern. Whenever people in power reach for education, it isn't to teach people to think for themselves. It's to make sure that power stays with the powerful. So, an education system that keeps everyone in their place might be tolerable in 1807, but it's not tolerable today. Today, children are inheriting a world which has more risk than any world that any education system has ever been built for. Today, we face what researchers call existential risks. These are risks that could cause humanity to become extinct or our societies to collapse. They include things like cascading climate change, artificial intelligence running out of our control, engineered pandemics, the collapse of democracy, nuclear rearmament, and the infrastructure that was built to prevent such risks is crumbling. The lessons of the First and Second World War are being forgotten. NATO is being sidelined, the UN is under strain, trade agreements are being torn up, and international cooperation, the thing our grandparents built from the ashes of the 20th century, is being dismantled in front of us. So how bad is it? Well, I averaged the estimates of serious research who study existential risk, and it's 1 in 5. A 1 in 5 chance that humanity or its societies do not make it to the end of the century. But surely we're doing something about this, right? Surely we're looking into this to try and prevent existential risks. Well, actually, no, not really. I'm 2 years into my PhD and I'm astonished at the lack of urgency in government policy making. We actually spend 10 times more on ice cream globally than we do on preventing existential risks. So why are we preventing them? Or why are we not trying to solve them? Why are we neglecting them? Well, partly it's because we're not really wired for big picture thinking. Partly it's because we see a problem that's so big, we feel powerless, and so we look away. And partly it's the fact that life is often a constant churn of worry. Food, bills, getting a job, getting good grades, getting an appointment at the doctor's. When life is so busy, who has time to think about the end of the world? And partly it's because I think we don't learn about existential risks, and we don't learn what we can do about them. And partly, and I think this is a crucial point, it's because existential risks aren't natural disasters. Risks are produced by how we arrange our societies, how we organize our economies, how we regulate our technologies, and how we distribute power. So solving them requires something specific. It requires people who can change society. And this is where schooling comes in. Education reform has been used before to change society. Can it be used again, but this time to help us save it? So let's go back to where we started. Education is the promise that one generation makes to the next. We will give you what you need to survive and thrive. And right now we're breaking that promise. Look at schooling today. In a recently commissioned review of the national education system by the Department for Education, it was found that there was minimal explicit inclusion of climate education in the national curriculum. And AI is similarly barely there. So the things that are most likely to shape your children's future are barely included in the curriculum. And children know. In a recent survey, less than a third of pupils believed that they could influence how their school was responding to climate change. And when researchers asked secondary school pupils what they thought about climate change, the overwhelming feelings were of fear and a sense of powerlessness. Powerlessness that they couldn't influence people who were older and more in power. And young people understand. They understand the problems that are happening. They just don't believe they can do anything about them. And that's what our school system is currently teaching them. And this isn't deliberate. Most teachers care profoundly. Most head teachers care profoundly. But the system that they are inside has never been designed to teach young people how to change society. It hasn't been for 300 years and it isn't now. So when education ignores the biggest challenges that will affect young people, that is a breakdown in community. It's the one institution we all share, saying to young people, the things most likely to shape your future are not important enough for us to teach you about. And more than that, we're certainly not going to teach you how to do anything about them. That should trouble everyone in this room, because young people, children, they feel it. Climate anxiety, AI uncertainty, growing global conflict around the world, a future that feels less fair and less governable than before. Children feel it, but the curriculum gives them no words for it, nor space to engage with it. So this is the idea I'd like to leave you with today. What if, instead of teaching young people just to serve existing social systems, we taught them how to actually change and improve them? We taught them genuine capabilities, like the ability to hold powerful institutions to account, or to imagine futures that don't yet exist, to work together across difference to make things better. Not just knowing and thinking, but connecting and acting. In 300 years of national education reform around the world, no system has ever been built around such ideas. So imagine it. Imagine a school where a 14-year-old didn't just learn that the climate was changing, but they also learned about the social systems, our systems of economics and politics that were driving that change. And they learned the skills to actually change those systems and improve them. Where a 16-year-old doesn't just learn to code, they also learn to ask, well, who's actually controlling our AI technologies, and to whose benefit, and what they can actually do about it. Imagine if every child from any background left school, not just with qualifications, but with a genuine ability to change society the way they want. That's not a fantasy, that's a simple design choice. And in 300 years of reform, no one has ever had the courage to make that choice. But you could demand it. Young people in this room, you could demand it. Parents and carers in this room, you could demand it. And teachers in this room, you could demand it. Communities like this could remember that the promise we make to our young people actually means something. Here's what I'm asking. Next time you're having a conversation about your education or the education of your children, ask one question. Does this education actually teach young people to change the world, or just to inherit it? Demand an answer. The classroom was never built for you, but it could be. The only question is, do we have the courage to do it? Thank you.